Oh, man. All right. Hello, friends, family, and everyone in between. Welcome to the FillGood podcast. I am one of your hosts, Byron Filler.
I'm the other host, Mike Osgood.
Mike, how are you doing today?
As you can tell, I'm doing pretty damn well.
Why are you doing pretty damn well, Mike?
Why not feeling? I am about to accept a job offer.
Woo-hoo! Congratulations.
Thank you, sir. I just got off the phone with the guy. We were filming the intro for the first round. Got a call from my future boss. I had to cut the intro short so I can have a brief chat about things. And
I mean, it's good that we did, because we, energy-wise, were like, how do I put it? It's like trying to do jumping jacks, but you're starfishing instead.
Yeah, you're just like, but now we're clapping. We're jumping.
No, we got some positive energy coming in from this good news. I'm so proud of you, man. I'm so excited for you. Last week, we left off with you talking about getting a tattoo. Mm-hmm. And now that you have gotten it, would you like to care to tell the kids at home?
Tell the Phil Goody Two Shoes about it?
Yeah.
I sure will. Phil Goodies, I got myself a tattoo last week, and I love it. I love it so much. I had a tremendously talented tattoo artist by the name of Phil Fabian. He that's Fill, similar to the FillGood podcast. I've been stalking his Instagram for the past year and a half.
He's got really cool stuff on there.
Awesome stuff. And I felt so lucky that Alexia, our producer / my fiance, was able to get me an early tattoo appointment with him. I was chatting with him. He was like, "Oh, July." And I was like, "Okay, that's a while. I'll be overthinking everything about this." And then she got me an appointment for last week, which is the second to last week of April. And I went in, and as I've mentioned this probably in every single podcast, I'm a very energetic person. My toes are constantly tapping. It feels like a San Francisco earthquake all the time.
Yeah.
I went into his tattoo parlor. I laid down on his little bench while he did the tattoo on my forearm, and I was still for 3-ish hours.
I can't imagine you being still for anything.
I didn't think I could either. I think I channeled my inner Noah Mayer, and I just meditated for hours staring at this cobweb that was in the corner of a brightly lit room while he stenciled in my Ursa Major tattoo that I have on my forearm now.
Charlotte was I guess meditative for Babe as well, so
I made him stop and look up. That's kind of what this tattoo symbolizes for me. I have always been attracted to that specific Big Dipper in the sky, which also happens to have the mama bear up there as well. So it's kind of my tribute to my family, to all of the people that have kind of helped raise me and make me into this person that I am today, and will continue to navigate me in the right path as life moves on. So I'm happy about it. It looks amazing. I love it. I love it. I love it.
You've inspired me for my future tattoo ideas. I actually have to send you the Pinterest for it, because it's once this comes into fruition and becomes a real thing, we'll talk about it on here. But it's I have no idea how to Pinterest. It's wild on there.
Pinterest is crazy, dude. I've worked with a variety of designers in the past. Yeah. And they are basically freaking ninjas at finding a little bit of anything and everything on Pinterest. And really? I hop on and I have no idea what I'm looking at. I was trying to find hairstyles for shorter, curlier hair, and I
think I have a problem, especially with pin boards and stuff, or just like inspiration boards, is like, I know the whole point of it is like, you're supposed to like have a conversation about elements of things. Oh, I like this because of this. I like this because of this. But then the obsessive compulsive side of me is like, I only like this, and I don't know if I'm communicating properly that
Right.
this is the central theme.
Dude.
When it's like in that photo, it's maybe like in the corner.
Yeah, I had that whole problem, and I felt so bad for Phil, the guy who did my tattoo, because I was constantly just on Instagram, basically Pinteresting, being like, hey, dude, I like this post. I like this. I like elements of that. I like this. I like that. He's like, cool. I'm just going to do it the night before. So, and this was like 2 months ago when I started like throwing shit at him.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, okay. Chill. Cool. Thank you. I was like, I'm trying not to be that overeager fan, but I was like, this is something that I'm going to be putting on my body for the rest of my life. I want it to be perfect, and it ended up perfect to me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
As it should be.
Yeah. But Byron,
Yes.
since the last time that we have spoken everything on here, you got married.
I did. She put a ring on it.
He is Beyonce.
She liked it, so she put it. She liked it, so she put a ring on it. This is the whitest Beyonce.
I was literally about to joke about that too. Like that was white dad trying to be cool to his teenage daughters. She liked it, so she put it.
Yeah, no, I don't plan on having kids, and I have more white dad energy than the entire Pacific Northwest.
True. No, but you are the most giddy, like, husband I have seen in quite some time.
Thank you. I feel, you know what? I think, for me and her, it's a hard thing to explain. Like, I think everybody has some level of this or a different experience of this. You meet your soulmate, and it kind of just clicks. And I knew my wife, oh my God, my wife, that she was my soulmate, I think, like, very immediately, but I didn't want to freak her out or myself out and just jump the gun with it.
Yeah.
But even after, like, the first month of getting to know her, I just knew, like, this was it. So getting married was less, it was more about the ceremony of it than the reality of it. Because I think, like, when I got to the altar, we didn't really have an
When you got
altar,
to the arch.
but the arch, yeah, I made this arch. It was pretty cool.
Yeah. I decorated
I was, yeah, no, it was an awesome arch. I really loved building it. I'll try to get some photos of that arch on here, because I'm very proud of myself for it. No, I was already there, so it was just, and the whole day was just really special and wonderful and amazing, and especially, like, during these hard times where, like, you don't know what tomorrow is gonna bring, and, like, we didn't know 6 months ago if anything of what we were gonna try to do, just in a more nucleus kind of small capacity, would even be possible at all. And at the end of the day, it was. And I'm so thankful to you and Alexia, Mike, because, like, you basically saved our asses on the day of, and just generally all of our friends and family who were there and loving and supportive throughout and just basically everyone knew what we were going through and just said yes to everything, because they just, same team.
And just so all listeners know, it was the most COVID safe wedding around. It was outside. Yeah. Everybody wore masks basically the entire time, and it was a whirlwind to get set up, but we got it set up, and it was beautiful. It was fantastic. I'm so incredibly happy to have you be the husband of my cousin, and you are now my cousin.
I'm now your cousin. We're officially cousins.
We're officially cousins. Oh, man.
On that note, by the way,
we need to talk about your best man.
I know.
About your best man.
I don't think I can ever post his best man speech, which we'll just give you the cliff notes.
First,
wild.
talk about our guest today. Who is the guest?
James Miller. He is my cousin from England, but he is a creative technologist, and he's built some of the wildest things that you can think of with creative technology. He's built mind-controlled cars, platforms, virtual platforms for like large events, self-buttering toast that has emotions.
So weird. So it sounds like Rick and Morty stuff, but it's real life. We'll post up a picture of Byron and his cousin. They are almost identical twins. It's weird. One's British, one's American. And to that note, I will also clarify, you might hear a little bit of audio glitches just because he is over the pond. But please, everybody, put a round of applause together for our guest today, James Miller.
We are back, everyone. Thank you for tuning back in after our little dance break. We are here with I mean, what can I say about him that hasn't been said? The amazing, the handsome. He is my British clone. It's James Miller, everyone.
Hello, it's me. Woohoo!
James, how are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm good. It's pretty cloudy weather over here in the UK, but you know what? Nothing dampens my spirits.
That is, I mean, it is mostly cloudy over there. Do you have sunny days over there?
You know what? Yeah, we do, but you can never predict it. Like, you know, the weather forecast says whatever it says, and I think it was actually like this week we had snow and sunshine, we had snow and like a really sunny day, all in the same day.
James, before we start diving deep into the wonderful world of all things you, we have to make sure that we expunge any and all bad and negativity in what we like to call our moment of bad, where we take roughly about 60 seconds.
It's not.
You want to know what? One can dream. But we're gonna take a little bit. We're gonna chat about the 3 things that have annoyed all of us over this past week. I'll start it off this week with one that I have particularly want gone in my life, which is asshole drivers. I was driving down the highway the past week, and I could not tell you how many people were driving like Dom Toretto in Fast and the Furious, cutting across 4 lanes of traffic. I'm going like 10 miles per hour over the speed limit. Do not use this against me in court. But going at least 10 miles per hour over the speed limit. And there's people that are flying past me, cutting across the lanes, going between people, not knowing what a blinker is. Learn what that is. You got your license, maybe. But take your speediness and be gone.
Be gone.
Byron, what's your bad?
Okay, so my first bad for today has a little bit to do with what we're going to be talking about today. But it is people who are not good about technology, but use that as an excuse to like panic, not like read emails, not like do certain things that are just like very simple. And look, as someone who I consider myself pretty technology savvy. I do get it, even on this end of knowing a lot. There are things that are just hard to figure out sometimes. That said, and I mean it, that said, I'm only going to sing this once. All of your problems can be solved with reading.
Ain't that the truth?
Be gone, I know you read.
Yes, be gone with your bad reading comprehension. James, what's been bothering you this week?
Well, my dentist slyly overcharged me by £60.
What?
Yeah.
Why?
So basically, I turned up for an appointment which was already all prepaid for, right? Because we prepay for things. Like we got you have different plans for things. It's all prepaid for, and yeah, basically I turned up, had my appointment, and then just as I was about to leave, they said, "You owe us money." I was like, "What? No, I don't." And then basically they charged me £20 for PPE, which protection against when you're wearing COVID, this all that kind of stuff, and then forty
Yeah.
pounds for a missed appointment that I had 12 months ago. And I was like, well, hold on a minute. Like, it's fair enough the £20 PPE charge, and fair enough, that's also debatable actually. I say fair enough. It's actually debatable charging me for a missed appointment when I've already prepaid it. But I was like, if you're gonna charge me anything, you should be telling me up front before I come in. Like, I said to them,
Yeah.
it's absolutely wrong. I'm never going to go there again. But my kind of opinion on all this is like, they've done a good service with my teeth over the last few years. I've been with them since I was a kid, so I'll pay them this time. But you know what? My kind of way of dealing with it is, I'm just not gonna, I'm not going to go back there again. I don't like to make enemies on something like that. I don't like to end things badly. But
If we're gonna take this accounting issue, we're gonna make it be gone. So be gone. I'm not gonna lie. For all of our listeners that are out there, we are currently on a video chat. I feel like Pam from The Office. Like, you have two almost identical people wearing almost the same exact glasses, who almost have the same exact beard and almost the same exact hair. Do you guys have like Wonder Twin powers?
I think
Yes.
so, yeah.
Is
Yeah.
this why you guys tag teamed on me in Super Smash Brothers?
That's I'm not as good as him. We'll get into some Super Smash Bros. A little later, but no, he's brutal. No, I did not get the be good at Super Smash Bros. Gene, unfortunately. We're gonna move on, and we want to learn more about everything that is James Miller. And to start, like every good superhero, they have an origin story. So, James, we want to know, what is your origin story?
Part one is that when I was a kid, I had like severe learning difficulties, things like ADHD, dyspraxia, dyslexia. I mean, those things don't sound that bad, but it was like there's different levels of severity with these things, and I'm under the understanding that I was pretty pretty on the far side, basically, on all those kind of levels. And the other side is I've had kind of like family kind of complications with like a divorce and that. So those two kind of things you could say are kind of like two things that when I was younger was. If I was a superhero, you could say those are like my my equivalent of landing from whatever Superman's planet is, or like Batman's
That's your Batman alley.
Yeah,
moment.
right.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a powerful cocktail. Where are you at in your life now? How's that catapulted you forward?
So I guess in terms of, I don't know, I think, I tend to do my best to see things as, basically I got a hell of a lot of energy. That's basically the kind of crux of it, right? And I've learned how to channel that energy, basically, and I think that I think I'm very blessed. Like when people talk about problems in their life and stuff, like I've got my own thing that when I was a kid, like I struggled with, but I almost feel in a way it's like I'm quite grateful in a way, because it's just I don't know, I have it in my head, when I'm doing things, like I don't take for granted at all the job I have, and making money and enjoying what I do, and I take it very seriously. I never take it for granted at all. And I guess I've learned how to focus energy. That's a really important thing. I guess even just an example of that, I said just a minute ago, I was up until like 1 or 2 o'clock, like just because I just got really into it. I went 300%, and I guess when you're a kid and you've got something like ADHD and all these other things, right? As a kid, you don't know how to like what that is. And I know, Byron, you can probably relate to that on your own level, because of things you've
Yeah.
gone through. But when you're a kid, you don't know what the fuck's going on, right? But I guess where I am now is at a point where I can focus that, and a result of that is that when I really get into something, I go at it, and my brains fill in it. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I could speak to that as just like also a person who has an immense amount of energy who needs to find that vent to just kind of like let it out and go through. Like lately, my thing has been fitness and trying to work out and get that energy out there. But one thing that I would love to learn more about is you you had a lot of the stuff that was happening in your life, like earlier in life. How did that transition into, and just letting the world know, you are what people call a creative technologist, which is by far one of like the most badass titles I've heard in quite some time. Can you tell us what a creative technologist is?
Yeah, it's a question which I get asked all the time. If I was gonna, the way I describe it to like, I have two ways of describing it. I have a way of describing it to people who are in the kind of media world, and the way I describe it to them is, I'm kind of half developer, half designer. So I do coding and I do Photoshop. If I was going to put it like bluntly, like that, on that level.
Yeah.
That's one way, but that is for someone who's in that kind of world. If it's to like my mum, or like my grandma, or someone who really doesn't have a clue, I build websites, I build apps, and I do things like AI or augmented reality or virtual reality. That's the way I kind of describe it to those kind of people, because they know of the buzzwords, and so that's good enough. They go, oh
Yeah.
right, he's one of these buzzwordy kind of people.
But also, not just buzzwords. If one were to Google some of the work that you've done some pretty dope things.
Yep.
How did this ADHD with dyslexia child turn into a creative technologist? What were the steps that got you to there?
Again, I'll massively oversimplify, and then we can talk about like and grow from there. So I guess
Yeah, please.
basically, when I was younger, it was like harder in some respects, and the result of it was that I'd go to a school, realize it wasn't quite the right school, because most kids don't have the issues of that kind of severe learning difficulty. So I jumped from quite a few schools at a young age. Eventually, I got to a school which was really, really good for me, but even then, I was like bottom of the class, and I really struggled with the education system, even with a school that was like quite good for me. It was a mainstream school I managed to get into, but it was quite a tough one. I wasn't good at any of the academic subjects or any of the anything of intellectual, what is considered intellectual, right? I kind of put all my energy into art, graphic design, photography, those kind of things, and because that was what I believed I was good at. Like, I didn't really understand that I could be on that kind of technical or intellectual level. I was just, because the way the education system kind of shapes kids is like, you're academic, you're good at maths, or you're good at science, or but actually maybe the kids who aren't good at it could be good at it, but because of the way the system shapes them, right, that you grow up with like a kind of a way of thinking, or a way of, do you know what I mean? Like you're kind of indoctrinated into like
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So I was indoctrinated into thinking, I'm a creative person. I'm an arty. I'm a designer. I'm a photography kind of person, and that's the kind of the route I went. And going into, I said it was a massively oversimplified thing. It is oversimplified, but I know I'm going on. But the point where it turned from creative to being creative technical is, I applied to go to university and do a degree in illustration, and I was like turned away. Like, I almost didn't get into university. I really had to fight for it. And during the interviews I had, they said to me, well, actually, you could do illustration, but you'd be okay at illustration. But what you'd be really good at is something called interactive design. I was like, oh, why is that? And they were like, well, because all your like art is very digitally focused, and you'd probably be quite good at something called interactive design. And I back then I didn't even think about it. Like I'm naturally quite a spontaneous person. Even when it came to applying to universities, like the list of in the UK, you apply for 5 universities. It's a list of going from A to Z. So all the universities beginning with the A at the top of the list, all the universities beginning with a Z are at the bottom. 4 out of 5 were near the top of the list because I just didn't even think. I was like, oh, that one, that sounds nice. That's, And then the last uni, I was on Facebook chat to one of my mates. I said, oh, what uni are you going to? And he's like, I'm going to go to the University of Lincoln. And I was like, oh, sweet, I'll apply there. And literally, like, that is the reason I went to that uni. I was like, oh, yeah, my mate's going. And it was at that uni where I interviewed for illustration. And they were like, well, you should consider interactive design. And I was like, yeah, sure, okay, why not? So, without really thinking about it, just like, yeah, sure. So I went into interactive design, and it was in that university degree where I then kind of unlocked that was the kind of the key in the door where I unlocked that kind of learning into the technical side and kind of learned how to combine the two. That's my long story short.
That's
even though that
amazing.
was a long story.
No, keep in mind, this is a podcast. We're going to be chatting for a while.
Right.
Yes.
Oh, that's what this is. Oh,
absolutely.
faddies. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Believe it or not,
Yep.
no.
It's all audio here. Just take off your shoes and just relax.
Keep your pants on, though, please.
Yeah, keep your pants on.
Your camera can't see. You can only see my top half. Don't you worry about it. I won't
Really?
lower that
Yeah.
camera any further down.
Damn it.
So, James, one thing we are interested to learn a little bit more about, of just like you being an artist, you also being technical, how are you merging these two in your everyday life now?
In my everyday life, I guess it's an interesting one. So I guess there's the in work and then there's the out work side of it. So the in work side of it is, I guess I'm more subject to whatever I'm asked to do. So in the job that I do as a creative technologist, sometimes I'm asked to do things which are more developer focused. So it'll be like, how do I build this thing? And then that's obviously much more technical than it is creative. And that engages more on the technical side. But there are times where I'm asked things like, what is possible to do? Or how do we enhance this creative idea? Or what's possible to do for this amount of money? That kind of question engages both sides, because you need to technically know how much things going to cost, and then creatively, how can you make something relatively kind of interesting that will kind of fit for whatever you're being asked to do. And then I guess outside of work, it's I like to paint. I like, I did fine art when I was younger for like A level and that. So I try and paint as much as I can. I haven't done much recently, but I have a blog which I every time I do a blog post, I do some sort of artwork. I need to get back into that, but I try and do that.
You do have, like, you bring a bit of your voice and your style into it. We'll link James's blog, because there's a bunch of really cool stuff on there and it seems like you're just trying stuff out for yourself. It seems like you're going through and learning it for yourself too, and just relaying what you've learned as a lesson.
Yeah, I mean, I've learned everything I know, like, throughout my career through Google. And basically people put all sorts of shit on the internet, like tutorials, YouTube videos, whatever it is. And I've learned, I know I went to university and you go to school, but I've really learned everything I know from a creative tech point of view from Google. And it's, the blog is my kind of way of doing my bit. So if someone was to Google something and a blog post that I've done helps someone else, that's my way of trying to contribute a little bit back of what I know, for the next person who just wants to learn or grow, I guess.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You've worked on projects such as mind-controlled cars. You've worked on like making these algorithmic art installations with trees and Twitter. You've worked on giving butter emotions or giving toast emotions when you spread butter on it. The first question I have for you is, like, one, why? Like, it's crazy. Is nothing sacred to you? Can we just have toast? No, but like, there's so many crazy artistic things, but also very tech savvy things that you have done that goes a little bit beyond just like making websites. And the big question that I have for you on that is, when you're doing things like painting, there's one artistic kind of process, and then you're making these other very tech savvy things. Is there like a intertwining thread that goes between that creative process between the two, or do you see them as two totally separate processes?
Okay, that's an interesting question. I guess if I just, I guess I, well, let's figure it out. I guess I'll just talk you through the process then. Let's use that emotional piece of toast you mentioned earlier. So that was a prototype I built for my first ever company. So I came out of university, and I was working on a pitch for them, and basically the client, I think at the time, was Hovis. There wasn't actually an active client; they were pitching for the work, and basically Hovis is like a bread brand, and I think they had something at the time. So, from a creative perspective, where it started out as was, we would have taken something that, and this is in the ad world, you have like branding and you have like a campaign message or whatever it is, and I can't remember exactly what the branding, but it would have been something to do with being happy or something to do with giving you energy, or do you know what I mean? There would have been some sort of brand message that Hovis would have had, like some sort of sub label, title, whatever it was.
Yeah,
And I guess you start brainstorming from that point.
just kind of like a key theme.
Right, exactly. And so you start from that point in regards to the kind of from a creative perspective, and then it then flips. So this is where it gets a bit of a grey area, right? Because the next step, and I guess any creative goes through this, but when you have technical competencies, what you think of is just a bit more extended, maybe compared to what an illustrator might think, or a graphic designer might think. But someone who has the technical competency, their kind of conceptual ideas spanned into the realms of, okay, so I understand like electronics, so am I able to do anything with the bread? Like, if I shove a wire into it, or can I turn the bread into a sensor in any way? Because if I can do that, if I can basically make the bread into any kind of sensor, then I can trigger something. So I knew that I could, from my understanding of electronics, I knew that I could basically turn it into a touch sensor. Basically, you put a bit of voltage into the bread through a microcontroller, and you can basically measure the resistance. And this might sound like it's really physics based, and it is, but I'm not going to pretend to be a physicist here. Basically, I've learned everything I know through doing stuff and it either working or not working. And basically, I just Googled stuff, basically. And the long and short of it was I was able to turn the bread into a sensor. So I was able to go, right, if I put my finger on the bread, I can trigger something to come up on my computer. So I was like, right, so I can do that, but that's not that cool. Like, it doesn't really mean anything, right? But I was like, okay, so it can detect my finger. And I was like, well, how far can I go with this? And I realized I could get a knife, because a knife is conductive. And I've put the knife to the bread. Yeah. Then the knife would have the same detection and resistance change that my finger does. I was like, right, okay, so I can put a knife to the bread, and the knife can get a measurable response. So then I thought, right, well, butter on the knife on the bread. Ironically,
Yeah.
butter didn't get the resistance change for whatever reason. I'm not a physicist, and I didn't really look into it at the time. But I knew that as long as I could get the knife to touch the bread directly, I could get the resistance change. So basically, then the next logical step was, right, I've got now, in terms of a technical thing, I've got something that technically I know I can do, and we've got the time to quickly do it. So the next thing is, right,
Yeah.
now back to the creative side, because I've done the technical bit of the fundamental technical bit. Back to the creative, we've now got a thing that we can do. What can we do with that as a kind of a way of actuating like an idea? And then the idea is, right, well, we've got this thing of the bread makes you happy, or whatever it was at the time, whatever it was. And basically, like, right, why don't we make it talk to you and say happy things? So like we recorded some people talking, and like you butter it once, it would say, "Oh, you're just buttering me up," or like, and it would be like, and then you butter it again, and it'd be like, "Oh crumbs, not again." But basically, you just got a load of puns from another creative dude who like is good with their words, and then that's where that kind of
Yeah.
came from. So it's a bit of a bounce between the two. It started off from a creative place. Then it was like, what can I do in the time I've got, and what is technically kind of possible? And then it was like, right, this is a way of doing it. Like, how can we now make a creative thing out of that technical thing? So it's like a bounce between the two, if that makes sense. In that
It
instance.
also sounds like a bit of a process of like you're working backwards to get to the overall goal. Like I have to like you have to chip away to get to the center first, see what that is mechanically and what that looks like, and then you can add more on top of it as you have that clear structure.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's bang on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Cool, cool, cool. Um, One thing that I'm interested to learn from you, your perspective on James and I often, outside of this podcast, we often get into some very deep conversations. One of the things that I am interested to hear from you is about technology and ethics. And I'm wondering if in your career, have you been faced with the question of ethics when it comes to tech, and more specifically, are there moments where you've faced like the process of the creation of the technology and the potential sinister uses of that technology that like come before it's created rather than after? Because I think a lot of what I hear with ethics with technology ends up being more about, well, now it's out there and people are just using it for awful
The
things.
classic Jurassic Park quote of, "We knew that we could, but should we do this?"
Should we have?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I guess I'll start off by saying I've never built anything which I think someone's life depends on. So I think I just start off by saying that. But I would say that I think it's right. There's a level of integrity that it comes down. Right, when you talk about ethics, this is a people question, and people build tech. So um, when I'm in this position, it obviously falls to me as my integrity. Um, and often when you're in a team of people, you may be the representative for tech, and um, therefore it's kind of up to you how far you want to take it or how you want to react to it, because people don't really know tech, and so it's kind of your decision how you want to do it, because there'll be some people, I guess, who they just want to leave at 5:30 and just be done with it, so they'll just, yeah, this will do, that'll be fine, and go, right? And I guess um, my way of the way I tackle it is, if I knowingly do something which is wrong, that doesn't sit well with me. I don't knowingly put something out which would cause any sort of negative impact, because that just goes against me as my integrity. Um,
Yeah.
and I guess an example of that, which realistically is the kind of thing that I would deal with, is, I guess, there's things like GDPR, which is a relatively recent thing in the last 3 years, like GDPR is a law which came into effect in the EU and UK. I know that you guys in the US have something similar. But I remember I was like kind of asked, like, we were just doing a project, and I was like, no, guys, like, because they would come up with ideas like involving cameras or involving whatever it is, anything which captures any sort of personal information, right? But you've got to be fair. Like, my kind of way of looking at it is, well, if you're going to put a camera that's recording someone, now that I knowingly am aware of a law which you need to give consent about personal information, an image of you, is that considered personal? And I didn't know the answer to that at the time, but I knew there was a thing that would affect potentially us. So my way of responding to it was, well, look, I don't know if this is actually a problem, but I do know that this could be a problem. And therefore, on that basis, I think it's worth like us consulting an expert. But that takes time and money, and that could risk a project going ahead or not. So but my personal opinion is I do that, but yeah, it can cause you more problems, and ultimately you probably end up working more hours, and it's probably more stress for you.
Yeah, I think that kind of leads into another big question that we have of like, in terms of ethics, there's also a lot of this conversation out there in the world of tech talking about it changing the world. Everybody's looking to change the world. And one thing that I noticed, just kind of in correlation to a lot of the projects that you have worked on, you've worked on things like mind controlling cars. You've worked on things like gestured controlled mice and kind of systems that work based off those. And I've at least seen some correlation in some of the work that you've done into things that are actually now out in reality. There are gestured controlled things within vehicles now to kind of help alleviate any button pressings or just quick activations for drivers. And then we're now in the world of upcoming self-driving cars. Within a lot of the work that you have done, and a lot of the things that you've put out there in the world more for just like kind of marketing efforts, have you seen anything else that might be able to affect some future actual development? Or is there anything that you're excited about that you've done that could potentially go into real world application?
Yeah, I think it's a big topic, and we could go loads of different directions here. I guess there's two things I guess I'll say is that there's some pretty big technologies that I believe in. There are four key ones. There's Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, blockchain, and then XR. I guess three of those things are probably really well known. Blockchain, people may know about blockchain through something like cryptocurrencies, but people don't. There's not actually cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin that aren't blockchain. They're like a result of the blockchain, and we, to be honest, as a world, haven't really seen the results of blockchain. But blockchain as a fundamental concept could change like a lot of things and just how our society runs. But that's a very big topic. I think another one that this is the second point, which is a bit easier to talk about because it's a bit more digestible, is the realities of now, or like COVID, and how that's affected everyone. At my recent company, which I've literally just left, my recent company. I've loved working there. They've been awesome. But basically, the most recent thing that we've built as part of the team is this virtual experience platform. And the realities of something like that is it enables people to meet in a virtual space and have like virtual events. And it's more than just a Zoom call. Like, it's actually like an event in your web browser that you can like move around in 3D space. And like the ways that can grow is like you can have like virtual reality like events, right? And or augmented reality based events. So if you're in the virtual world, you could put on a headset and move through a space. And if there are people in the same event, but they're physically attending it, this is the thing which I think is really exciting in terms of, you said, how can it be the future, right? In terms of the big things, like, events in the future aren't necessarily just going to be physical event. Like they in my mind, they could be super exciting if they have this virtual component. And people in the virtual world may in a future could be attending through any device, be it your web browser on your desktop, be it a mobile device, or it could even be in a VR headset, right? And then people at the physical event may be able to interact with people in the virtual event through things like augmented reality, or even just like through like touchscreens, or you know, I think you know anything on that kind of level, like anything that touches those four big technologies that I mentioned, in this case
Hmm.
XR, like AR, VR, anything that touches that is going to be a significant change and like in a big way for the world going forwards.
Yeah, and like there have been some developments out there recently of like having these combined experiences, putting it lightly here, not compared to the level that you've done of like think of like silent
Mm.
discos of people being in a confined space together but enjoying this immersive experience while other people are listening to a different kind of music. And then also to another effect of gigantic events being held on Fortnite, the video game, where a lot of players can come together and watch like an immersive concert specifically made for that. And tell me if I'm wrong, but essentially you are working on creating spaces that will literally bring anybody in the world, regardless of what kind of technology they have, kind of together to experience a thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the power of the web browser. I mean, at the moment, we use the internet, and it's like it's like a very like a 2D thing, and you do see some 3D websites out there, but the concept, I personally, from a technology point of view, I'm very biased towards things like JavaScript, like because I think web technologies are the future. Like they're native technologies and they can do some really powerful and exciting things, but in terms of like connectivity and bringing people together with low barrier to like entry, um, I think like web technologies and where that's going is like what I have the most interest in.
One of the things I'm interested to know about from you
Mm.
is I think even just in general, like so many things, like COVID has just changed, not only like changed the way we operate during the pandemic, it's most likely going to change the way we operate after the pandemic.
Yeah.
So I guess like first things first, how do you think large events like the conferences and conventions and concerts are going to change with the introduction of a virtual experience platform where people can, no matter what technology they are using, they can be in the same space together?
I think that it's I guess two things. I guess first of all, from an accessibility point of view, it changes the game. Um, because it's forced like everyone's been forced in different ways to adapt, like to use technology to like either get jobs or to to work differently or to whatever it is. Like everyone's been forced to adapt in this, and I guess um, the first point in this is that when you open up events to like interaction within the digital space, um, it just allows people from all sorts of different backgrounds and like um, whatever device they have to be able to attend an event. And I think in the future, the ability for someone who's online to interact with people who are offline, I think that's going to be a really interesting space and how that kind of develops. I think that's the first point, and I guess the second point is physically actually attending an event may actually become more of a premium thing. Because if you've got like a limited space, then it's, I guess you only got so many tickets to sell, right? Versus if you're like, attending a virtual event, that may be the lower cost way of being able to access something. Um, so I guess it'll be interesting to see how events kind of going forwards, how they kind of pan out, because I guess especially as we come out of the pandemic with limited spaces, like, be certain distances people have to stand from each other, or do you know what I mean? All these kind of COVID restrictions.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how that actually does pan out, because it won't just be like a 0 or a 1. There'll be like a grey area in between that, and how physical events like slowly open up will be interesting. Even though the governments may say, "Go, you're allowed to now hang out." It'll be interesting to see, like, as a
Yeah.
culture, how we react to that, and how much we lean on technology to help kind of cover that kind of that grey area.
I guess like knowing that and like jumping off of that, is there something that from building these platforms, I'm wondering if by building a 3D space, are there um are there flaws in the way that conventions and concerts are run that you guys have been able to expose, and that in order for these events to continue moving forward, they have to address these issues. They can't ignore it.
Um, the way, and I may not be answering your question at all, but and
It's
totally tell
okay.
me if I'm going off piste with an answer like this. But the way I think this kind of thing, I guess the exciting possibility of some, the way I kind of look at it is virtual events now, I think, are all pretty, I won't say primitive, but kind of, yeah, like, they use some really exciting technologies to power them, and certainly what we've built is really, really cool. I just see a world where it's like in the future, where we've kind of used existing technologies and future technologies to really expose possibilities, things that people don't. When like Pokemon Go became a thing, people were like, "Holy shit, I can catch a Charmander like by walking outside!" Like, and that was like a big viral thing, and it is
Yeah.
really cool. I love Pokemon more than just as much as anyone else does. But from a technology perspective, it was actually quite like primitive. And it was like, oh wow, really? Like people like that caught on, like and I guess from the perspective of like virtual events, like we haven't really scratched the surface of what is like really possible. Like when you think of I guess just one way of kind of looking at it is when you go to a physical event, you kind of expect that you can't really talk to the speaker or the person talking on the stage unless they say, okay, who wants to talk now? Or, like, and then you have to put your hand up maybe, and then they come to you and say, okay, right, what do you want to say? And they pass the mic to you. There are certain conventions that we're limited because of a physical space or a physical environment, and we kind of replicate things in the virtual world to kind of match the physical world because that's kind of what we've known, right? And I think it's those kind of conventions, once you break those kind of things. I guess as an example of that, just to kind of give a bit of a flavour of kind of the thing that could be possible with technology is if speakers are like talking on like in a specific studio, right? That's set up. And this is done in. I'm not saying this isn't like an not done thing. Like there are places that do this kind of thing, right? But it's certainly not like it's done everywhere, like a mainstream thing. But being able to like record speakers like in like real time, streaming that out, so that it captures a 3D kind of avatar of them in real time and streaming that to a virtual platform, and people being able to engage with that avatar, right? Because immediately there are some interesting things that can be done immediately with that, and that is that the idea of what a space actually is, being able to interact within a space. In fact, you know what, actually, as I'm saying it, it's reminded me of, sorry, you've mentioned something earlier, Mike. I'm sort of darting between two different things.
Let's go. Let's
So
go.
you mentioned that game, the name of the game, I can't remember.
Fortnite.
Fortnite, right. There was a Fortnite event relatively recently where like a band played live and like all sorts of people watched it, and they did all sorts of really interesting things where they made the artist grow really, really big, for example, and everyone was dancing around the artist.
Travis Scott.
I think so, yeah. I mean, so I'm not, if I'm really honest, I'm not like a big music person, but I know of it because I'm a tech person. So I noted the use of the technology. I don't really know,
Yeah.
the artist. You probably know that better than me, but it's stuff like that where it's breaking the conventions of what we kind of know to be true in an event. I mean, another way of looking at it is if you take, I mean, this is potentially maybe the scarier side of it, but I'm looking at it from the optimistic, cool, fun side of it, which is like if you take enough recordings of
Yeah.
someone, be it video or 3D model recording, whatever it is, and you kind of generate an AI that can kind of replicate a limited amount of communication or interaction. You could have people actually engaging with an AI, which is which has the kind of moving model or video of the artist. And AI, by the way, like, I don't know if we're going to go into this, but it's way less sophisticated than people really think, and the realities of what can be done now with it are like quite limited. But I guess the point where I'm going with it is, it's just the conventions of what we know to be true are really set based on the physical world. They're not based on what is technically possible. Do you know what I mean? And now that we've taken this step into COVID, where virtual events are a thing, we're still in this space where we're looking at a virtual event like we would a physical event. And the more we stay in this virtual event realm, it'll be interesting to see how many new conventions begin to get generated, like this thing with Fortnite that we kind of just mentioned, and how that begins to affect. Actually, there's one more thing. Actually, is interesting. I know I was about to conclude, and I know I'm picking up on a big thing. But like it's like there's an artist, and you have to forgive. Again, I'm not a music person. I'm just a tech person in that respect. So I note the use of the tech, not the artist. But there was like a Japanese anime singer, and she's only like a hologram, supposedly, right? She doesn't actually exist as an actual person. The voice must be a person, but the actual character, a bit like gorillas, like, the singers are real people, but they pretend to have these avatars. You have these concerts where you have like a hologram stage, and there's this hologram anime girl like singing and interacting with the crowd in real time, and it's just interesting because that's another use, but that's a bit more in the physical realm. But
Yeah.
do you know what I mean? It's interesting to see how these technologies are beginning to creep into physical events, and then it'll be interesting to see the new precedents that are being set based on that.
We are going to switch gears a little bit, though. We've talked so much about technology. I know that we could go on for days on days on days on days on days.
On days.
But we want to talk to you about, we want to switch gears to what makes you feel good. And so I'll start with the other day, because we've all been talking a little bit before this, we jumped on a Super Smash Bros. Game with James, and he kicked our asses.
I want to say we got pretty close. It was also a free-for-all, but
I know he was toying with us, but we got close. But I wanted to ask you, because I've played every so often. You're really good at this game. Where did this love for Super Smash Bros. Start? And tell us about your love for Super Smash Bros.
Well, I guess I used to play a lot on computer games when I was younger, like, on the N64. It was like and I couldn't get that many games, like, because when you're a kid, you're kind of beholden to whatever your parents choose to get you. I was often given like you can get this game, but once you've got that, that's kind of what you got, kind of thing, And I remember I wanted to get Super Smash Bros. I saw when I was in at the time, it's called Game. I think Game is still around, it's still a thing. But basically, like, I saw the case for Super Smash Bros. Like with the Pikachu and the Mario and the Yoshi, and I was like, I totally want to get that game. And I said, "Oh, Mum, can I get that one?" And then I can't remember what she said. She's like, "Oh, you won't want that one. You will want this one," and whatever it was, I can't remember. And we got that game, and I was like, "No, I don't like that. I want to go back and get Smash Bros." And it was just at the time, I thought it looked really, really cool. And so we went back, traded in whatever it was that we got, and I got Smash Bros. And it was one of the few games I had at the time. And I did eventually get more games, but I was given like you can get this game, until a few months or whatever it was later, then you can get another game. But at the time, I didn't have that many, and so I just got really, really, really into it. I just played all the time. And like it started out like I was playing whatever it was through the arcade mode, and then it just got to a point where I was playing like level 9, one level 9, then I was like, oh, I can beat level 9 quite easy now, two level 9s. It got to a point where I was fighting three level 9s, and then I got to a point with that, right? By the time I was finished, I was fighting three level 9s on a handicap of like 1 or 9 or whatever it was. So they were doing like 9 times more damage or whatever it was. But like, yeah, it just got to a point where I just got so into it, like But then this is the N64 version, and it's a very different physics engine compared to what the later games are. Um, but yeah, that's kind of where it kind of began really, and obviously, like, I guess I played the following sequels ever since.
I think we can all speak to, we all kind of became enamored with Smash Bros on N64 and just how kind of revolutionary it was for like us as kids to really hop in and be able to just play as these characters that we've always wanted to, but and just beat the crap out of the other ones. It settles all those playground arguments of if Mario can beat Link or whatever, which surprisingly he can. But a question for me is, at what point did video games kind of become this sort of escape from knowing that you work in tech and things are always busy, 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 busy? At what point did video games kind of become that
I
escape
mean,
for you?
I guess this is the I did grow up in like a divorce household, so there was all lots of all sorts of arguments and that. Um, so I mean, for me, it was just kind of like playing computer games as my kind of way of just getting in the world, really. I guess so. I guess I would say this about computer games, but also kind of like at the time it was cartoon shows and anime for me. So for me, it was like things like Toonami. I know you mentioned earlier, Mike, like you watched Toonami and stuff like that, and that's kind of what I kind of grew up on. And so for me, I guess there were two things which I really kind of like learned a lot from is like anime and computer games. So games like Legend of Zelda are really close to my heart because like first of all, it's just a wicked game. But also it's like there's lots of problem solving and like I guess the story of Legend of Zelda is quite it's about overcoming whatever it is whatever it's puzzles or the bad guy whatever it is. But certainly with like with anime there's I learned a lot from anime, as crazy as that may sound. Like there's a lot of I guess unlike I don't know Western cartoons, it's a little bit more moral based. Like there's more morality to anime, and it teaches you some pretty like quite adult things. Like for example, I use something like Naruto as an example. Like Naruto like addresses some pretty adult issues, but it's dressed up like a cartoon show. And when I say like adult issues, I don't mean like a weird like it's nothing at all sexual. It's more like quite deep and difficult topics. Like the main character is someone who has no parents, for example, and he grows up in a society where he's kind of shunned, and he's dressed up as this kid who's like quite excitable. He's fun. He's got a load of energy. He's getting around, getting all sorts of mischief, and he gets into cool fights and stuff. But he deals with some pretty like difficult things, and the way that that's kind of addressed as a cartoon show is quite interesting because when you're watching it as a kid, you're watching it on like oh this is a cool fight scene or oh like this is really funny or whatever, and then there's some quite difficult things that come up in that kind of cartoon show, and it's like as a kid it's quite interesting to kind of watch that and actually internalize that as a kid. And for me, I guess I learned quite a bit from, as weird as it might sound, I learned quite a bit from cartoon shows.
Yeah. No, I that was actually something that I know, like with anime and video games that I connected with, that there was some sort of something that I
Yeah.
could, there was certain like deeper level of emotion where I think video games it was a little bit more obviously like I could control the character. So I was able to express a little bit more of the emotion through there a lot more obviously. But anime was interesting. I think like the first time you see Goku turn Super Saiyan. You're 7 years
Yeah,
old, and
yeah.
his hair turns yellow, and he's on fire, and you're just like, oh my god, I feel like that all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
And
That's an
it
incredible
was
scene.
a really, like, being a kid and seeing that for the first time is insane. And then everything afterwards previously, where it's not the most dramatic thing and they just like turn it on, it's like, yep, I resonate with that too, because sometimes it's just not this big crystallizing moment. It's just like, well, I'm just switching on the emotion because I just feel like I'm on fire. So I wanted to dive a little deeper into like the gratification that you've received over the years as you've grown up with some of these games and some of these shows as well, because we have had the
Yeah.
privilege of growing up with these characters too, which I think like as has been amazing in itself. Like, what do you think that you've been able to connect with as you have changed over the years?
I guess it's overcoming adversity. I think that's a pretty um, I mean, everyone's got challenges in their life, and everyone's got all sorts and it's like so many different people have so many different types of challenges. And I think that's one thing everyone can kind of relate to, right? Everyone's got their own sort of challenge in their life, um, and it's sometimes it's too much, and sometimes you can't deal with it. But sometimes you need to step it up, you and you sometimes you don't really have a choice but to kind of step up. And I guess one thing I guess I bring up Naruto again is, and again it's a cartoon show, but actually there are some pretty dire situations, like pretty sad situations that Naruto as a character kind of gets into. And I'm not saying at all that he is like an inspiration that made such a big impact on me, that in itself, but in terms of the culture of the kinds of things I watch, like it plays into the kind of, as a kid, you kind of look at things like Naruto and you kind of think, wow, like this character dealt with, this adversity that he came through by doing X, Y, Z, or this other character did something else. And I don't know. I think the message. I think certainly in anime, it's very interesting. It's a positive message, but it's very moral based. I'm not saying all anime is like that, by the way, but
Yeah.
certainly a lot of the anime that I watched when I was younger. I don't even mean like Pokemon, because Pokemon doesn't really, for me, it never really had that moral kind of vibe to it. It's a super cool, like addictive game, and I still think it's really cool. But it's not like not all games necessarily had that, but certainly there were games there like, and there was anime certainly like Naruto, where you witnessed the main character deal with adversity, and there are times where they didn't really have a choice and they had to step up. And you don't, in the real world, things aren't necessarily that epic. Like, do you know what I mean? Like you said in a minute ago,
Yeah.
Byron,
Yeah.
like
You mean you
Goku
don't
turned Super Saiyan.
randomly just yell and scream and get blonde hair? What you mean that's not a real thing?
The amount of times that I have just wanted to solve a problem with a Hadoken, just not because it was necessary, but because I just feel that need to shoot energy out of my hands.
I mean, I grew up in the middle of the desert for 5 seconds and with no neighbors. I absolutely went outside and tried to like yell, scream, and unleash this inner power inside, just like "Ah!" And it just never happened. I was really sad about it, but I did unleash some energy from it. It was pretty nice.
As your co-host, I can tell you, Mike, it happened.
I wish I could have seen it. It sounds
I'm so
awesome.
happy. Maybe later I'll show you when I kick your ass and smash.
Bring it on.
Well, in order to move on to that, we're coming to a close on this episode. We're sad to see you go, James, but also we will never leave if we don't come to a stop here.
We can all chat for hours.
I know. James, yeah, what I wanted to ask you is, what's your future good? What's in store for you? What can people be excited about to see from you?
Well, I guess there's two future goods, I guess. I'm interested in exploring, like, because I understand, like, creative thinking and technical thinking, but I'm very interested in exploring business thinking. That's something that's been very absent in my life, and something I'm trying to kind of grow a little bit more of an understanding in. So I've got a baby shoe store, which is really super duper random. But it's like carrying on like a family business. My granddad owned like a baby shoe manufacturing business, and then my dad and my uncle then inherited that, and it's no longer a thing. But I've kind of re-brought it back up in kind of a new kind of flavor. So I've got like a baby shoe store, which is kind of carrying on that kind of family thing, and it's my kind of way of exploring kind of business, but that's not necessarily the thing in itself. That if for me more, it's like exploring kind of the how to kind of develop kind of business understanding, and yeah, hopefully my baby shoe store, Baby Brooks, can grow and become successful. But if not, it's something I'm definitely interested in growing my understanding in businesses, like developing apps or whatever it is, like more of a things that can help people, I guess. If the baby shoes that I sell are super useful and helpful to parents or nice for the babies to wear, that's nice. And I think things that I can build that can help people through developing the business competency, I think that's something I'm definitely interested in kind of growing. I think the second thing, I guess, which is more of it's less of a business thing, but more of, I guess, of a technical sharing competency thing. I want to do a bit more blogging if I can, and put a bit more of the technical information that's in my head kind of out there into the world, like into Google, in a format which is just useful for a random person to understand and kind of get knowledge from. Because if people don't do that, then people won't learn how to do stuff. So I want to try and give it back a bit more, like do a bit more blog posts and give out that information, kind of help people kind of grow their technical knowledge, really.
James, you've already taught me so much, and I can't even put to words how thankful we are to have you here to walk us through the ins and outs of the craziness that is creative technology. And we are so humbled to have you here, but we don't want to just keep you to ourselves. Where can people find you online and learn more about all things James Miller?
Well, I guess if you want to buy some baby shoes, that's Baby Brooks, babybrooks.shop. And if you want to see more stuff about me and tech, my website is jamesmiller.blog. And I'm on Instagram and Twitter at jamesmillerblog.
Beautiful.
Amazing. Beautiful. Well, James, thank you so much for being with us here today, talking through all things creative technology, all things about the future. I'm very grateful for you being on here, and we're all just we love you. I get verklempt at the end of
we
these
must say
interviews.
Goodbye. So, James Miller, goodbye. Until next time.
Goodbye.
We'll say that.
Goodbye, my lover.
All right, much love, guys. Love you much.
Wow.
Right?
James Miller. Wow.
Right?
Like, we had this interview before your wedding, and
Yes.
I want you to know that my respect for him only went up after because of the best man speech, but also during this interview, I knew how incredible he was with the amount of activations and his art and everything, but it just doubled in size when he talked more and more about it. I was like, holy shit, this guy's brilliant.
Yeah. I mean, he can he can go on and on and on. You can just get lost in it. I think we went on so long because it's just it's hard to tear yourself away from that. He's such a bubbly kind of person to talk to, but he's also just very clear and concise about how he talks about things, even when he's going a little all over the place. He always knows how to like bring it on back, and you're
He
like,
does.
everything's connected.
It is. It's all connected. But Byron, what did you take away from our chat with James?
I a little biased because he's my cousin. I know I'm a little better, but I think like it was the first time for me having a realization and talking to him a little bit deeper about technology. And I think like we have a bit of a at least from the consumer side of things. Sorry about Cooper meowing on the floor here. If we can
It's
hear
okay.
that.
I mean, we got to get his opinion too.
Exactly. He's got a lot of them. No, so I think from the more consumer point of view, I think all of us have a bit of a like Jetson, cyberpunk, Star Wars kind of idea of like what technology is supposed to be and what the future is. And I think coming from the perspective of someone who's like building these technologies of tomorrow, like living in those technologies of tomorrow and having a different perception of that. And he ran us through like all of the more like differences of like the technical aspects, but the more like human things that are about people rather than technology itself. And I thought it was really nice and really interesting to hear him break it down like that. I think also like because he's talking about like certain technologies that were like, oh my god, this is amazing, like holograms and this kind of stuff, and then he's sitting there going like, we've had that for a while. Where have you all been?
Yeah. I mean, I'm gonna say this to everybody in sort of a confessional way.
Okay.
The thing I took away from this interview is that James is very good at Super Smash Brothers. I was trying to talk a big game during the interview, and then right afterwards he was like, "Hey mate, you wanna hop on a game of Smash and you want to play and stuff?"
That
And I'm sure you're
terrible.
good. It's shut up.
It's better. No, it's better than most.
Yeah. Tell that to Alexia. But I immediately hopped on a game of Super Smash Brothers with him and lost every single one so bad. Like, I thought I was decent.
Because we all played together once. How much harder did he go on you?
He went hard.
Yeah.
He went hard. Like, putting this in a term of people who do not play video games, it was like watching a 5-year-old go against like a major league player. It was like, okay, I'm gonna be cute, I'm gonna let you play a little bit and I'm gonna smash, and then you're like, okay, I'm gonna let them like try to go and get a goal, and then I'm gonna kick it out from under their legs or something. Like,
It was
he
like Michael
destroyed
Jordan
me.
in Space Jam.
Not even. Like, Michael Jordan had to have his like secret stuff in order to like go and, you know, he had to hydrate.
Yeah.
But he had it inside him all along. I didn't. I thought I did, and he decided to just crush my dreams of being a professional video game player and throw them out the window. But in all honesty, like, I loved his thought process of just taking the technicality of it, of like, okay, there's something that needs to get done and we can build that. Now, how do we take in the artistry? How do we take in the design elements to really make this thing come to life?
Yeah.
And like the whole butter example, just being able to take like a piece of toast, and then as you're spreading the butter on it, just making it be like, oh, well, that's quite crumbly. It's like just little things like that made me giggle so freaking hard. But it's also brilliant. And I cannot wait to see all the crazy cool stuff that he does in the future.
I mean, he's got a lot of awesome stuff that he's got up on the horizon.
If you guys want to learn more about James and all the creative technicality stuff that he does, you can check him out on his blog at jamesmiller.blog, or you can find him on Instagram at jamesmillerblog.
He's also got a portfolio where like you can, and we'll link it. You can check out all of the cool technologies he's worked on, and they've got like some fun little videos on there and like some interactive elements. His, by the way, his portfolio. If you have VR goggles, go nuts. Like, I'm not even joking. Like, you go to his website and it's like meant to be seen with virtual reality goggles.
I thought you were just kind of joking, but
no, I'm not. I'm not.
We need sponsors so I can afford a VR headset. So if you are interested or have any questions about the FillGood podcast, you can write us at fillgoodpodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on all the socials at FillGoodPod. That's FILLGOOD pod. And you can just listen to this. Make sure you like, you subscribe, you give us 5-star ratings anywhere that you listen to your podcast. And we will very much appreciate it and love you for the rest of your life.
Well, I mean, we already love you for the rest of your life.
But even
we
more.
love you even more for the rest of your life.
And yes. But in the meantime, I'm Mike Osgood.
I'm Byron Filler. We want to give a special shout out and thank you to our producer, Alexia VanWaes.
And also our podcast tech gremlin, Wes Underwood, for helping us with this episode.
And we are happy to welcome Elisha Underwood, who's helping us with some research and development. So welcome to the team, Elisha. Thank you so much for joining us and helping us out on this crazy adventure that Mike and I are going on.
That we are all going on now. But until next time, everybody, we will catch you on the flip, the flop, the flip, flip, flop, the flip, flip, flop, the flip, flop,